All right, so, okay, thank you very much for joining us in this Circle Hosting training. We are actually in the second week, but this is when we really get down into the I'd say down and dirty in the mechanics of creating a community online. This doesn't necessarily have to appear to be the basics of creating a community online. It can be applied to all types of circles, groups, leading the charge in whatever speciality you think that you have. So without further ado, let me just kick it on further. That would be useful if it was working. There we go. So let's get a few prelims out of the way. First off, what we're talking about here is in the creating of circles and communities, that actually 80% of the effort goes into, or the thinking should really go into the strategy side of it. And I'm hoping that the other circle hosts in here will identify with this, that in fact, actually, once you have got the basics sorted out, in fact, of the strategy, the rest of it should flow. On a little bit of the, on using Bizmerang itself, it's relatively simple once you get into it. It's very similar to your Facebook or your LinkedIn, but I do suggest that you watch the videos on it, and you'll see them in all of your home news feeds. You'll see that there is a feature post at the top with a couple of training videos in it. Strongly suggest that you watch those. And the final bit is definitely join some circles, because your home news feed will be relatively bare unless you do so. The other thing that we need to do is I'd just like to make some acknowledgements here. I'd just like to acknowledge Jim Bianchini and the fantastic team at Mighty Networks. Not only have they developed the Mighty Networks platform that we host Bizmerang on, but in fact, actually, an awful lot of the content that you're about to go through here with me is based on their host mastermind training. So, without further ado, who is this course for, or certainly these next 5 weeks? Well, really, for anybody who has asked themselves, how do I create a thriving community, or how do I do it so that it's fun and not a lot of work for me? How do I do it so this is a community this community that I'm creating, that I'm creating is worth charging for? Now, you may not want to charge for your community, but actually, if you want to justify the time and effort that you put into this, then you may well think it worthwhile to be charging for it. And there is also the other flip side of the argument that, in fact, when people are paying for it, they will engage a whole lot closer and be more meaningful engagements. You might ask yourself, what if I have an audience or email list somewhere else? How do I get them to become an actual community? Or if you've already got that community, if you're hosting on Facebook or some other app such as Slack or LinkedIn, what else could you be doing with your community if you took that step of taking it out of there and bringing it into Bizmerang, or even if you didn't take it out of there? But part of what you'll discover in the next 4 or 5 weeks, that one of the reasons why Facebook communities are quite difficult, or perhaps not as productive as you want, is because actually you cannot deliver some of the tools or tips and tricks and strategies that you're about to develop yourself whilst going through this course. And what if I am starting from scratch? Can I actually pull this off? It sounds like that we are trying to build a mountain, or you're trying to create a mountain from day one. But actually, at this particular point is why Bizmerang is specifically very good, because rather than creating a mighty network by yourself or building an app by yourself, the whole thing is that we are creating a community of communities, so that in fact actually that all those communities are self-supporting, and therefore for you to attract your member in, it is not just necessarily your circle that is bringing them in on a very, very regular basis. So what are you going to learn over the next 5 weeks? So the first one is today. We're talking about step 1, where we're doing an introduction to community design. That's what the first half of this evening is about. The second half will be defining your purpose, and then if there was such a thing as a third half, then we'll go into some Q&A. Next week, we'll be looking at a year in the life of your community and starting your community design plan. then into completing your community design plan, planning your big launch in your first 90 days, and finalizing your big launch and first 90 days. Just so you know, Karen and Eve and myself have all been through this process at least once before. And we are in Circle Leader Circle every day. And so if there's anything that you want to ask or share, we will ask you to share your exercises in there. But in fact, nearly everybody in Circle Leader Circle has been through this process already. Feel free to reach out and ask and feel. We're all about collaborative learning here. And finally, there is no such thing as a wrong or a bad question or a stupid question. The learning format really is a 40 to 60 minute Zoom call. The home exercises, we say it takes 40 to 60 minutes, but in fact, actually, it's the one this evening will probably take about 40 minutes, but sometimes it can take a little bit longer depending on the depth that you want to go into. And as I mentioned, there's lots of Q&A and chat in the Circle Leaders Circle from people who are going through this process right now and with others who have already been through it and have existing successful circles, etc. So, straight into community design. Successful communities all have some basic things in common. And those are the joy of being a part of something bigger than yourself, the joy of working towards a common goal, and the joy of building skills and getting better on a personal level. So the joy of being part of something bigger than yourself. It's a bit like at school, for me, it was playing a rugby or football, and understanding that, in fact, actually, that feeling of team and being part of something where not only did you wear the shirt, but you had that feeling of well-being because you were part of that community. There was one thing that was joining us all together. The joy of working towards a common goal is, I find, and I'm sure other people will jump in here, that in fact, when you're working towards something, when it's a common goal, it doesn't therefore feel like it's one man pushing or one woman pushing water uphill. But in fact, when you're bringing a community of people with you, you have a common aim where you're going to, and therefore you take strength and peer development from those around you who are suffering from a similar or have a similar issue than you. So it's a joy of moving and knowing that you're all on this common journey together. And then finally, the joy of building skills and getting better on a personal level. So whilst the other two are talking about the communities themselves, but what part of being part of this community that you're about to create and that you've just joined by becoming part of the Circle Leaders Circle and becoming a chitter or circle host in training, is that we have the joy of building skills and getting better on a personal level. And I know, and I can see Karen smiling there. In fact, Karen, I'm sorry, but you're the only actually person I can see at the moment. But I can see you smiling there because would you agree that as you're going through this the skill level that you've developed over the last 3 or 4 months and whilst building your circle has been a joy?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's an absolute joy. I think the key is being passionate about what you're going to set your circle up about to start with. Yeah. And then it's then you just make a start. You just make a start, and then the following week you know how to do it better, and then the following week you know how to do it better, and then suddenly it all it comes together, and that skill continues to grow.
And then when I asked you earlier on how's life in DC and you said everything's fantastic, I'm sure that's because of your wonderful The Word is Microbiome and how you enjoy producing that content and bringing your community with you.
And those great packed lunches as well, Karen.
Sorry?
And the great packed lunches that she must make.
Yeah. It's funny.
Can you bring one of those with you when you come over, please?
Yes, when I'm over, I'm going to do some research. When I'm over, I'm going to go to loads of stores and see, okay, who's selling fermented foods where. And I've got 4 nieces that I'm going to see, so I'm going to ask them what they have for packed lunch and all that sort of stuff, and just sort of grow that resource.
Please don't talk to any of my children about fermenting.
to jump in beyond, guys, what sounded humorous about Karen's circle. Emma just joined for a while. The word is microbiome, because I think of all of us, Karen does the best job, and this isn't flattery. This is absolute unmitigated jealousy.
Yes.
She does the best job, like with the video and the engagement. Were we all doing dances?
Hang on. Don't be frightening poor Emma and Lorraine and Suzanne and our other members who are coming. It's not just about the quality of the content that Karen turns out. But just so you know that I think Karen's well aware of this. That in fact when Karen first suggested to us to myself and Shane, the co-founder, that she was going to produce this circle called The Word is Microbiome, we kind of looked at her and went, sorry, what is that? What are you talking about? And she said, it's all got to do with gut health, and I really think it's something that we should be aware of, and my daughter suffers from it. So it's like, oh, well, yeah, look, we're not going to say no to anything. And we kind of joined it because we were being polite. But it is just fantastic. It is really, really good. And that's why I'm very glad that Karen has come to join us this evening, because actually she is literally a shining light of how to do this. So,
you're awfully kind. All I like doing is I just like pressing all the buttons. My advice is just press all the buttons and see what happens, because you can't break it.
I read that down. Press all the buttons.
Oh my God!
If may I just say, if there's one thing that you don't take away from this evening, that's not it. Right, moving on. Okay, so the point I was trying to make is that the power of your community comes from bringing people together to master something interesting together. All right? So this is not about Emma Weaver or Trevor or Suzanne or Lorraine. As I keep trying to say, you're not building a pyramid where you are at the head of that pyramid and you are absolutely responsible for every single little action that appears within that community. That's a dictatorship. That's not a community. So we're talking about building communities here, and that is where you bring people together where they're going to master something interesting together. It is not just about, we'll come on a little bit later on about what it isn't. But try and get yourself around it. This is around the head. That's why we call them circles rather than triangles or pyramids, and that's why we call them hosts rather than leaders. Because it is not that as if you creating a whole load of your disciples. You're creating a community of people who have a common purpose, and you're bringing them together, and you're taking them to and together you're going to master something interesting. So it is not, therefore, just reposting your social posts. It is not just reposting your email campaigns. That doesn't mean to say you should stop doing those, or they are ineffectual, or whatever, or they're useless. We're not saying that, but we're saying that the community, the content that goes around in a community, or you hosting a community, is not just about repurposing content marketing or other content that you have got that you're just putting out. It's certainly not just adding external links and saying, here's a great article, what do you think? It is about creating a content, or it is about creating discussions and continued learning together. And it is definitely not about software and the features. The software might help the engagement and change, etc., but communities aren't bound by software. They are bound actually by that much softer glue of that community that needs to master something interesting together. That'll be somebody's phone. So community design removes the grind of community building, and we're going to replace it with curiosity, joy, and the best kind of surprises. So there's that joy again, or that word joy again, that this is meant to be an enjoyable process that you're about to go through, or developing this community. It should not be a grind. It just because Karen churns out the most fantastic looking content doesn't mean to say that we all have to go, oh my word, I've got to learn how to edit video. That's not what it's about. It's about moving together, learning together, being curious together. And as I say, the best kind of surprises are not the ones that go, boom. The best kind of surprises are those ones that are aha moments, and of course, or I didn't realize, or wow, this week or this month I have moved myself forward in whatever it is I'm trying to achieve. The other thing is that within that community design, you really do have to shift your mindset. And I have been working with MLMers for the last 10 years, ever since I started getting involved in digital marketing, etc. And everybody talks about the millionaire mindset or moving your mindset. And it's a very easy sentence to say, but actually in this case, what we're saying is adjust your mindset to being curious. So rather than trying to teach, be curious. Try stuff. Try new things. And again, I'll ask Karen to just, when we just get to the end of these points, to just iterate some of the stuff that she has tried. Sometimes it will work. Sometimes it won't work. Reframe problems. So rather than saying, I have an issue, or this is how you should fix this problem, you might reframe it as a question along the lines of, here is a problem that I have. Has anybody else got experiences of that? And that reframing of a problem is about engaging and getting the rest of the community involved. And this is a problem that we might not all solve together, actually, as in taking the action, but we can all contribute to solving that problem. I ask our community for help and ideas. The other thing is trust the process that we're going to ask you to go through here. It is not just something that Bismarang has thrown together. This process is largely built by the Mighty Networks program, Mighty People at Mighty Networks, specifically Gina Bianchini, but she's been doing this kind of thing for the last 10 or 12 years. So it works. It's not some magical algorithm, as you see, as we work through over the next 4 or 5 weeks, but it is a standard process of how to build this community. And the last thing, and the thing the most important for me, is that it's not about perfection. And so actually seeking perfection is a major barrier. There's a wonderful phrase that I can't remember right now, but it's all about people getting caught in, I've got to have this absolutely spot on. It's got to look perfect. It's got to be, actually perfection is something in your own head. Again, I'd give a very good example is that just producing creative work. I worked with an agency, 15 years ago, where we couldn't understand why this new startup, a fantastic business called Stage of Design in Belfast, why they were doing this most fantastic work for major brands right across Ireland, but they weren't making any money. And when we got into the detail of what was happening every day, the creative director, or the founder of the business, was constantly trying to make every last piece absolutely perfect. The client didn't see it. The beer drinkers, because it was Budweiser in Ireland, the beer drinkers had no idea that he was sitting here adjusting a Pantone color by the minimal amount, other than the brand ones, etc. And actually 10 or 15% of his time and effort was actually completely wasted. It's the same here. Don't get held up in trying to make something absolutely perfect, because it is impossible. In Palo Alto or in Silicon Valley, they say, develop, then ship early and iterate. Ship early and iterate, because you will never get it perfectly right. You can adjust it and make it better and better and better, but you'll never get it perfect. Anyway, so again, back to Karen. Karen, would you have any ideas of what something, or give us an example of something where you just tried it and it worked or failed?
Okay, so what I think,
obviously not.
It's really good to hear you going over this again, because what I can recall, I'm thinking back now to going through the process myself, and I can recall once you start, so you're on this, this is the second week you've been on this call. So you've already started, and you're probably already finding that you need a notebook, or you wake up in the night and you've got an idea, or you're driving to work, or you're doing something, or you're cooking, and you need to jot things down, because it just gets your creative juices flowing. Mm-hmm. So what works for me is not, I don't sit down and think, okay, I'm going to create a post on the gut-brain connection for Friday. I've just got like an ongoing thing where I've got lots of posts are probably started, and lots of ideas are going, and then they just come together at the right time. So I've stopped beating myself up, because initially I wanted to get a post out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that did work for a while, but then it stopped working for me. So it's finding out what works for you. Yeah. And to me, there's no point in putting out a post that's not addressing my persona or ideal member, clientele. There's better having no post there than just a rubbish post. So it's finding out what works for you, and then trying stuff. So what I love about this, it gives us permission to be curious and to try stuff. Yeah. So I'm absolutely fascinated by the gut-brain connection, and it is the hottest topic in town. So I'm not an expert on it. So I just want, my goal will be to start a conversation about the gut-brain connection, an ongoing conversation, and a way to stay up to date with that. So I'm trying to figure out the best way of doing that. And I tried a few things and they're not working. So I'm still sort of trying to work that out.
That's okay. That's fine. I mean, the thing, the stuff that you do, so things like, I had a bit of a go, not a go at you, but I commented on one of your posts last Friday about the bloody earworm that you put in my head. It's Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
So Karen did a one of her weekly. I don't know whether you do it once or twice or 3 times a week or whatever, but it had a big button. It had a big button on it which said "Don't press here," and of course, I had to press it, and it was the Ghostbusters video of because it was the 31st. That's right, it was Halloween, wasn't it?
Halloween.
So I just had the Ghostbusters theme going through my head for the rest of the day, but it also meant that in fact I had the word is microbiome going through my head for the rest of the day. Yeah. And there's other things like I would never have persuaded my partner Julie to do anything on video. I'm not entirely sure if we ever actually shared it, but we pulled a whole load of vegetables out of our kitchen garden and laid them out, and I had no interest in carrots or anything beforehand, but I thought, oh God, I must get that up into the word is microbiome. Karen will be so pleased. And everybody will think I'm absolutely fantastic, and then you were going, oh yeah, well can you get some video of you pulling it up? It was like, oh okay, Julie, get outside, we're going to get some video on this.
So the other thing is the content creation and getting a circle established. Please trust that we're all in this with you. Mm-hmm. So along with Guy and Shane and Karen was my friend who I encouraged to become part of Bismarang. I should have been very enthusiastic about the word is microbiome, and I wasn't. I joined to be polite, and I have to say it's the circle I'm the most excited about.
Oh, thanks very much.
Oh, did I mention Guy's circle? Anyway, but the point is the conversations that we have around it, even around old posts. So when the apples came in, when was your applesauce post? It was like one of the first.
It's one of the first.
But when the apples came in, then it was having a conversation about that. So you're not in this alone. we're all evangelists for each other's passions.
Exactly.
And I just encourage you to speak openly about your passion, and trust me, you'll find somebody else who's going to pick up the ball and run with it.
Absolutely. I nearly posted in the Word is Microbiome this afternoon about, because again, you were talking about feeling bloated. Yeah. And I was sat on the sofa this afternoon, I was going, God, I actually feel bloated. Why? And then I realized it must have been the 2 dark chocolate Kit Kats and a cup of coffee I'd had when I came back in.
Oh.
But it's simple things like that pull me back into your community.
Don't worry, I've got a few more bloated posts coming out.
Oh, thanks. I look forward to it. Anyway, we digress.
Can I just ask a question? Karen, have you attracted the members that you thought you would do when you set out to start the circle?
No.
Who are you trying to attract then initially?
Okay, I'm trying to attract, my ideal person is a middle-aged man.
Oh,
there you go. I'm here, honey.
Yeah. Have we mentioned this to Mark?
He's my experiment.
Really, you don't want to share this with Mark.
because why is that? One, because again, it's paying attention. Well, who does come up in front of me? So whenever I've been out month after month, since coming to the US, it's middle-aged men that seem to come up in front of me, whether they're work with runners in another part of my business. But I'm thinking, okay, well, if these are the people that are coming up in front of me, they're the ones I'm going to address and work with. And when you see, what I think that the beauty is, when you see a middle-aged man feel better, well, then he's a better partner, he's a better parent, he goes to the workplace in a better mood, and you get that spilling out into the community. And that's my ultimate goal, just to see those local communities improve.
Well done.
Cool. Okay, moving on. So the structure of community design is really based into 4 or 5 areas. 4 areas really. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hence we have 5 weeks from here on in. And Suzanne and Lorraine, when she joins into this, some of this you will have sort of covered off in the exercise you did last week, but we're going to get into a bit more detail from here on in. So the first part is your big purpose, why you're all there in that community. The second thing is that once you've developed your big purpose or understood your big purpose, is mapping out a year in the life. Where are we going to go on our quest over the next 12 months? Ourselves and our merry band of brothers that are within this community. On the monthly themes, we look at the general roadmap of relevancy. So what is our quest going to consist of? Now, monthly themes are not as complicated as that. Monthly themes are essentially the themes that we are going to put together within our community that are the loose binding of the content for that month. Weekly calendar is about building the habit that we all take part in. And so you'll see that in the Circle to Circle, well, in this Chitters thing, we're now getting into the habit of Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. And the Circle to Circle, we did get into the habit of Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. that I really want to get back to, and we are going to start a little bit on that at the end of this week, at the end of this chat. And then daily actions. The daily actions is not just churning out content, as we were saying earlier on, producing videos or reposting social media posts, etc. It's not, when we get into daily actions in the last week, you'll understand that it's not just about churning out content from you. So, moving into our big purpose, the first one of those 5 elements that we're going to look at. So your big purpose is the motivation for your community. It is why we are all here. What is it that joins us all together? And that might be that We all have an interest in, well, in this particular community, of building other communities. It might be along the lines of that we want to promote our businesses or promote small businesses in this area. We're a community of small businesses and we want to promote our mutual benefit. It might be that we all suffer from or are victims of something that might be ADHD. It might be ADHD in adults. It might be a mental health of some sort. It might be that we all had our second second from the left toe removed or something, whatever it may be. And it's something that can only be accomplished by bringing these exact people together to answer that call of this is where we're going. One of the things that we will talk about on this is that the more specific you are, the better. Just because a lot of us in this part of the world are based in Northern Ireland, and I know, Emma, that you're talking about ADHD and but we are actually creating communities digitally here, so don't necessarily restrict yourself to your local community if you don't want to. But because of that, because it is digital, you don't, even though you are based in Fermanagh, you don't have to just be working with ADHD people or adults in Fermanagh or even Northern Ireland. You know, you can get it to a much wider audience. And as a consequence, you can then start getting very, very specific. And specific is what attracts people and helps bind them in, because if your big purpose is specific, then we all genuinely feel that we have the same issue and the same feeling of community. So has anybody heard about the hero's journey? Have we heard about the hero's journey? Just say aye, because I'm going to see one of you one of the time. I don't know what Zoom is doing, but as I say, right now I can only see Emma. So Emma, have you heard of the hero's journey?
No, I'm not quite sure if I have.
Not sure if you have. Okay.
No.
So the hero's journey is a recognition by, well, actually, Eve. Why am I talking about the hero's journey? Eve is the expert on the hero's journey.
So Eve here on the hero's journey. It's really everything that we know we see. It's sometimes referred to as the monomyth. It's that story that is common, the single myth that is common to every culture. So biblically, it's the Abraham story, the land that I will show you. It's seen in Norse literature and Greek and Roman literature. And the bottom line is you get a call, you refuse the call, you then go on to accept the call, and we all would know it in Star Wars and The Matrix. And if you Google The Matrix and Hero's Journey, you get an amazing, really brief, far shorter than I can tell it, outline of this. How do I come to the work that I was meant to do? And it genuinely comes of resisting the call, finding the passion, and surrounding yourself with the people who can help you deliver. So this is honestly the reason that I evangelize about Bizmarang, the reason that I am excited about Bizmarang, is it gives, like you're looking at this panel now, 5 of us and about 8 or 9 who are going to tune in to the recording, who have the capacity to attract people and empower them to make their own journey and support them along the way. So we're going to get where we are meant to be when we accept our call.
So the call here in this example is that in this community, we all want to build our own communities, and that is the call. So as Eve says, that it can be replicated in Indiana Jones, in Star Wars, in if you think about Star Wars and how Luke Skywalker has this feeling that he wants to be somewhere else, and he had a bigger purpose, as you say, but he couldn't go, and then he met Obi-Wan, And in fact, actually, he crossed the threshold from that ordinary world that he was living in into that special world. And in that special world is where what your community is. It's in that special world where we're going to encounter those tests. We're going to understand the ordeal that we're going through and the ordeal that we need to go through to get to the greater purpose that we're trying to get to. I'm not trying to insist that we're about to start a new religion here or anything like that, but what I am saying is that your community needs to understand or feel that in fact actually that presently they're in an ordinary world, and that if they join the special world that is your community, that in fact actually they will then together understand and address that issue, and then from there journey onto the road onto the road back into the ordinary world, and bring their learnings from their special world, i.e. in their community, and improve their ordinary world, or return with the elixir. So if you imagine back to Star Wars, how at the end of it, that sort of kind of slightly American phonyism where they're all standing at the end and they've just been given their medals, and it's, luckily there's a representative of every race there, and isn't it just fantastic? And so it is something that actually has been this journey, or this hero's journey, that has been adopted by writers and creators for probably thousands of years. But in fact, it is pretty similar all the way through, that our hero is living in the ordinary world. They have a special problem. They join a community, which brings them into a special world. And then that allows them where they learn and move towards and address the problem, and then come back into the ordinary world. And that is really what we're trying to do here, is that it is that special world, and attracting people into that special world and moving with that purpose that that your community is all about. Sorry, Rose. Sorry, Eve. Go ahead.
If I could jump in for
Sure.
A second, it's literally about living an ordinary life in an extraordinary way. So we are inviting people into a community which, because they're so passionate about their gut, or they're so passionate about connecting with people, or they're so passionate about whatever you're offering, they get to live their ordinary life in an extraordinary way.
Fantastic. Okay. So, again, there are a few things that are core to the best big purposes. And the first one is that, as I touched on before, being specific, that you can picture, when I say you and your community members can picture clearly the end state and how each of us will be better for taking part in this particular quest. And the more specific you can be, the better. Exciting. It needs to be fun and challenging every step of the way. If it's going to be like me doing my GCSEs or my baccalaureate once again, I'm really not going to be that excited about it. This has to be something that's fun and challenging every step of the way. And again, this brings me back to the host not being necessarily a leader or the pinnacle of an organization, because asking you to be fun and creating challenges every step of the way is a big ask. Whereas in fact, actually, if you bring your community in and that we're all going to take part in that, then in fact, actually it becomes easier. The next thing is that it's only achievable together. It won't be easy, but together we can do it. Again, this is not about you being the pinnacle. It's about all of us working together and sharing and being collaborative and helping each other and working as a team. And by the end, we can do it. And then finally, incredibly rewarding. The rewards for achieving this purpose make it worthwhile. Now, I don't know what that incredible reward that you imagine for your community or for your community members is. That's entirely up to you. But it's that thing that you wake up in the mornings and go, oh, if only. What I really, really like to achieve is, if only we could do this or I could do that, etc. So some good examples might be, example one, the number one is that we're going to support, encourage, and define together the easiest, most effective way to grow a thriving community that is worth charging for in 2020. And actually, that is the big purpose of the Circle Leader Circle within Bismarang. Another one might be is that we're going to support, encourage, and define together what it means to be a great freelance creative director for business to consumer startups. Or we're going to explore, prototype, and build together the fastest, most creative path for each of us to find our encore career after the age of 50. Or we're going to define together the most exciting, least painful way we can take our young families on a year of travel around the world. And you'll notice that all of those, that in fact they are specific, they're exciting, that largely we can only achieve them together, and there is an incredible reward at the end of it. So, actually, before we go on to that, is there anything that anybody doesn't quite get about that, or are we being a little bit too evangelical? Suzanne?
No, I'm there.
You're there? Emma? Okay. Emma, you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Okay. Does this sound like the right way forward for you, or are you going, oh my word, what have I got myself into?
It definitely sounds like the right way forward, but it's a lot to take in, so I really am processing it and writing it down and just really listening.
Well, don't worry. There's a video that you can watch again in your own time if you really feel, if you're brave. Okay, we're nearly there at the end. So defining a big purpose is you're going to take 2 steps and answer 4 questions. And that first step is start with the basics. Okay, and that's the first question is, answer, we are designing, or complete this sentence. We are designing a community so that we can bring together people who are, or people who have, or people who want, or people who need, or people who suffer, or whatever it may be. So your question number 1 is to complete that sentence how you imagine your community. We are designing a community so that we can bring together people who are, have, want, need, etc. And the second question, having completed that first sentence, is so that each of us can do something or achieve something, or where do we want to go? What is it that is that big thing that I was saying, that you wake up in the morning and say, oh, if only I had. The second step is then to add that excitement and your own special sauce. So the third question is completing the sentence. If I could wave a magic wand, what each person takes away from this community is. That might be a better ability to concentrate, or better to lose weight, or to touch their toes if it was a yoga community or something along those lines. And the final question is for your own confidence, is I am the right mentor for this because I have worked in this industry for 20 years, or I have already lost 48 pounds, or whatever it may be. So I'm the right mentor for this because.
Is this all written down in the leader circle?
Yeah. I will share in a post tomorrow morning that'll have this video, and it'll have all these slides as well. Okay.
Also, there's a fabulous video that goes with this, and I highly recommend that you just listen and listen to it repeatedly, because if you have any doubt about your capacity to deliver it, when you hear over and over again that it's a matter of just being yourself, Emma, in your case, just being passionate about teaching adults to cope with or recognize their ADHD, or Suzanne, teaching people that they're not alone, they can live in a space in which they can be independent and collaborative at the same time. You will, at the end of this process, I assure you, know that you are the right person to be leading your circle.
Here. So today is the day for you to define your big purpose. So of those 4 answers that you just gave, if you combine those answers into a sentence that you can use to get a reaction from potential community members. So work on those 4 questions and then look at them and say, as I say, combine a sentence together that answers those 4 questions. And then ask yourself, is it specific enough? Is it exciting enough? Is it tough but achievable? And would they want to join you in this quest? Then share your big purpose in a post with the topic, my big purpose in the Circle Leaders Circle. And I'll touch on that in the post that I do tomorrow that has this video and these slides in it. Okay? So, questions and comments. Before we go any further, Karen, have you any comments on what you found when you went through this exercise?
Yes. Initially, I thought, okay, this is my homework. And so I started to complete it as if I was doing a homework for school or university again. And it was a load of rubbish. So I had to get I had to think of it. I had to complete it as if, okay, nobody's going to mark. There's no teacher's going to mark this, today.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I had to get really honest with myself, which being both in Irish, we're not terribly good at doing sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I just had to keep peeling the layers back. And instead of filling it out for a teacher to mark, fill it out for what I was hoping to create and for the outcome. So just keep asking. When you write something down, look at it and say, well, why did I write that and what does it mean? And you just keep going at it and going at it and going at it. And for me, it's quite tedious. Not tedious. It was I was struggling with it, I think. And then I suddenly just got past that pain barrier.
Yeah.
And you have to put yourself in your ideal member's skin for a minute and think, what would they want from this? What are their pain points?
Yes and no, Suzanne. Sometimes people they have the issue themselves, and that so when you're asking that question of what would I like to have at the end of this, sometimes it's easy to start with yourself, because you're bringing a community of people along together. Now, your one might along the lines of building a business community. That is what you're trying to do, isn't it? Is build a business community? Yeah. So what do I, Suzanne, want out of that business community? Where do I want to get to as a business owner within this community? Where do I want to get to? Now, as Karen says, you might over time then refine it, and just because this is what we do today doesn't mean to say it's what's going to be there for the next 12 months. You might want to refine it as we go on, but I don't know about Eve and Karen, but I found it easier if I thought about what did I want to get at, what did I want first, and then in fact, actually, if I was specific enough in the other questions that I answered, that in fact, actually, it made it easier in understanding what they would want.
So I went through this exercise with a guy long before Bismarck, when he was developing this course on essentially these skills, this skill set and this methodology, a year or so before Bismarck. And to be honest with you, if you have any difficulty approaching the assignment, make an appointment with one of us on Zoom. And so that would also include Guy, Shane, and Allison Matthews, who's away on vacation right now. But I'm certainly speaking for all of us, but more than happy to go through the process with you. Mm-hmm. Because we can be or play or imagine ourselves as your ideal client and give you the kind of feedback that allows you to stay in process long enough to really dig deep on it. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Because you've already defined your purpose and we can help you refine the process.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say you have to make an appointment. I just ask the question in the Circle Leaders Circle. Yeah. Just say I'm struggling, or I can't get my head around this, or this is my thoughts. What do you think? That's what we're all here for. That is, this is a community of circle leader. I'm sorry it's still called circle leaders. It should actually be called circle hosts. When we first started doing this, we thought it would be leaders as well. But actually, when we got into community design, it was there. But we're all circle hosts in there, and it's as one of the beauties of Bismarang is that the better the other circles do, the better our own circles do. So it's not as if you're asking us to put ourselves out just for you and that you owe us or something. And it's not. It's the benefit of the community together. It is improving that community together. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I love the emphasis on the togetherness and almost like the core group. Two of my favorite example core groups are Winnie the Pooh and Harry Potter. So Winnie the Pooh is fantastic because it's just as a core group, they just have to get through everyday life. And Winnie the Pooh is about to make an appearance later this month. And then Harry Potter. So they've got some hardships or whatever. That's a battle of good against evil. But when you look at the characters in Harry Potter, they're each unique. They have their own flaws.
Yes.
They're completely different from each other, but it's their commitments to each other that makes them heroes. And I would like commitment to each other that will make us heroes for Bismarang.
And I'd like to say that I just am claiming Eeyore. Like I'm just
Oh, I got Piglet. I like Piglet. You're claiming Eeyore. Eeyore would say that.
Does that mean that I don't have to go to the gym and I can look like Winnie the Pooh?
so one of the things, Emma, that Guy says that really annoys him is that and believe me, I go out of my way to annoy him.
You're quite good at it.
I will say it's all about me. So what I can tell you is I am so excited about the potential for your circle, because in many ways it's all about me. Mm-hmm. So you are expanding in Northern Ireland a circle of people becoming aware of adult ADHD. In the context of my career development and small business development practice, I am no longer up to date on the latest and all of that, and I can't provide a Northern Ireland network of people coping with, dealing with, educating about all of that. And so what you have become in entering this process is a resource for me.
Yes.
Yeah,
very good. Yes.
And we're not forgetting about you, Suzanne or Lorraine.
I think, did Melissa join? Did I see her name coming up?
No, she hasn't joined yet. I'm hoping that she'll join us next week, and she will have caught up with the video and all that stuff.
I can see her on the screen.
I'm here, but so it said 2:00 Utah time, and that's what time it is.
Oh, really? Oh, God, I can't come. Oh, Melissa, I'm really sorry. We got to the end. Well, there is a recording of it as well, so and you'll understand that you can share all this in the Circle Leader Circle and all that sort of stuff. So I'm really sorry, Melissa. Now that we have you here, can you just quickly tell everybody about that? There's 5 other people in the room here. Just quickly tell us about you and what you're hoping to do with your community.
Okay, so my name is Melissa Kay. I'm working with James Billman on a project that's called the Cowboy Warrior Project. The Cowboy Warrior Project is we're working on a program for the community to instill old-fashioned values and ethics, work ethics, into teenagers and adults alike, trying to just go back to the way that things were even when we were raised. So we are just looking to give the youth of America and the world a sense of who they are and hold them accountable for their work ethics and help them to believe in themselves.
And don't you do that through one particular route, through rodeo or something like that?
Through rodeo. So it actually started with James's youngest daughter, Chelsea. Chelsea was on an individual education plan, an IEP, for her entire life since she was in kindergarten. and he got her a miniature horse a few years ago, 3 years ago. And the miniature horse, she kind of got on the horse. At first, she wouldn't touch the horse. And she got on the horse, and within a week, she was riding a regular size horse. So he got her involved in rodeo, and at first, her confidence levels were really low. And as soon as she started getting times for the events that she was in, you could see a newfound confidence in her. So this year, 3 years later, just fast forward, so I don't go into a whole bunch of details with you guys because I'm sure you've been on here for an hour. But this year, she has actually been removed from her individual education plan. She's no longer on that, and her reading level a few weeks ago, 100% in 1 year on her reading level, and she's now competing, and she's now doing better and better. But yeah, it's absolutely revolved around rodeo and horses, animals. So animal therapy and just helping her believe in herself.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, wow. Brilliant. So I just need to severely apologize that the website that I looked at that gave us the time zones obviously misled me. So Melissa, I take it back, but it'll be, and I also apologize for my bloody camera. Anyway, I will, we'll make sure that we get it right next time. I am quite conscious that it's 10 past 9 this time in the UK. Is there anything that anybody else would like to add? So, Melissa, just so you know that myself, Eve, and Karen are all existing Circle hosts. And so the reason why it's Karen's actually in DC. So the time zones again are just like, ugh! So, but we are existing Circle hosts, and part of the reason why they're here is to not only just help you guys along, but for you to understand that within the Circle Leader Circle that we have our own community there, and it's all about collaborative. And once you watch the video, you'll understand where we're going. So, okay, Emma, was that useful for you?
Yes, thank you very much. Definitely.
My pleasure. Suzanne?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have 3 or 4 circles at this rate.
That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Concentrate on the one you're most passionate about to start with. I would be the piece of advice I give you on that one, okay. Because that makes life easier for you. And Karen and Eve, is there anything else you'd like to throw into the circle before we leave it here?
Just in terms of Karen's, in terms of Suzanne's 3 or 4 circles, we can explore the idea that some of those circles could actually just be hashtags.
Yeah.
And Melissa, if you get a chance either to stay on the line or to chat later in the week, I would love to talk to you about what it is you're doing.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so I'm going to just stop the recording now. So thanks very much, everybody. That doesn't mean to say that I'm just going to, we'll probably carry on for another just a minute or two after that, but I'm just hitting the pause, the stop recording. So, right. Okay.